Now here we can see that this is actually a normal cell. So here we have the normal cell. When there happens a reversible injury, so different types of the mechanisms will get started in the cell. So like for example, the myelin figure formation occurs, and swelling of endoplasmic reticulum and mitochondria occurs, and the formation of membrane blebs occurs when there is injury in the cell. And if this injury progresses, it becomes the progressive injury. What will actually happen? This cell is actually this has to die through the necrosis. So necrosis will ultimately take place and the cell will die. Also here we have, this is actually normal cell. So in case of the apoptosis, what actually happens here, so the condensation of chromatin will start to happen and membrane blebs are formed, and after that the cellular fragmentation take place, and in this way the apoptosis takes place. And here is the actually the difference between the necrosis and apoptosis. So in case of the necrosis, when we see the cell size, so the cell size is actually enlarged in case of the necrosis, whereas in case of the apoptosis it is reduced or shrinkage happens. As far as the nucleus is concerned, in case of the necrosis, there are different types of steps which happen. Like firstly, pycnosis happens, then karyorehysis happens, and then karyolysis happens. So for example, this is normal cell. So in this normal cell, what will happen in case of the pycnosis? The condensation of nuclear material starts to happen, and after that this karyorehysis happens. So this will start fragmenting, and after that lysis takes place, and that is called as the karyolysis. So in this way the nucleus is the nuclear fragmentation takes place in case of the necrosis. Whereas in case of the apoptosis, what actually happens, actually the DNA is bound. So we say that this is actually the nucleosome complex that is formed. So this chromosome, for example, this is the chromosome. This chromosome will actually get fragmented into this particular shape in case of the apoptosis. So similarly, in case of the plasma membrane, in necrosis it gets disrupted, whereas in case of the apoptosis it remains intake. Sometimes it can be altered, but this cell membrane remains intact. And for cellular contents, this enzymatic digestion takes place in case of the necrosis, whereas in case of the apoptosis it will remain intact and it may be released in apoptotic bodies. So when apoptosis happens, the membrane blebbing happens, and these membrane blebs, they are actually released in the form of apoptotic bodies. In case of necrosis, the adjacent inflammation is frequent, whereas in case of apoptosis it is not present. And for physiologic or pathologic role, this necrosis is invariably pathologic, whereas this apoptosis, this is physiologic. That it means that elimination of the unwanted cells, it may be pathologic after some form of cell injury, especially DNA and protein damage. So this is physiologic, whereas this is pathologic, right?